Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Well, a little bit of fishing today at TP Dam and Manistee, and a little bit of walking here along a beautiful river. And while I'm doing this, I thought that maybe I should share with you some of my CPS, Child Protective Services experience. I used to work as an investigator for cases of abuse and neglect, and I was considered a senior investigator because of the long time I worked for the Department of Health and Human Services. Today's topic is race matters. Not in the way you would think I will talk about. Here, there's a little creek, a little bridge, but the Department of Health and Human Services in the state of Michigan deems, which way? I think this way. Deems the diversity, equity, inclusion garbage as being very important, and not only very important because of its title, but it's going to make us work harder. It's going to have a proficiency, is going to be very efficient if we have this program implemented. I will tell you about a direct experience with the director of my specific department in Ingham County. And that had to do with a director who wanted to know what kind of race I have. Not only I, but the whole department. I will explain that. But let's go to the general requirements. General requirements in the department were that we fulfill a certain number of hours of training in the department. They were training us every year. That was online, that was in classes. It was different methods. And you should acquire those points, those hours of training, and then you were trained, you were good to go. What that was just a way for them to cover their asses, as one of my supervisors used to tell me, cover your ass, cover your ass. Okay, what do we have here? All right. So they were covering their ass in case you did something. The department was covered that they trained you. Therefore, it's on you. Well, it's true that sometimes you make mistakes. I mean, who doesn't make mistakes? But nevertheless, they were training us. And the trainings, I gotta tell you now, I've been many years. I worked as an investigator. I don't think I found one or two trainings. I still know what the trainings. I think they really helped me. The other ones were shallow and very much political, in order to make us more sensitive towards certain requirements. One of these training was regarding the drug use among teens, among children. That was very, very interesting. We had an expert coming and giving us, a good presentation. And I learned a lot. Why? Because I was interested in knowing, as my degree, one of them is in sociology. I was very interested in statistics and how many people are affected, how many children, teenagers, and so on. So that was one of the most important, or one of the two that I was very interested in, and it helped me. It really provided me with knowledge. Another one is I took a course. You have to take a course of it's called the forensic interviewing protocol. That means they will teach you. You get a class in how to interview people, children, and not only. A method, that uses open-ended questions and so on. Very interesting, but you take the initiating training. And then if you want, you can apply. If you're good enough, the department will allow you to go the so-called next step forensic interview protocol techniques. I took that. This is what detectives take and other people who are beyond just the basic. Those were the two that I really cared. This one I requested it. It was not provided to everyone because I don't know. Someone was paying, I guess, even though they were spending $30,000 for the initial training as a CPS investigator for the 6-week training. So what happened? We had the so-called, how do they call them? Implicit bias. That was one of these kind of trainings, so-called classes, implicit bias. And they were a lot of, they were skewed towards basically making one group feel guilty of something that actually individually you didn't do it. You understand what I'm talking about. I had to take a lot of classes like this, and at one point I exited one when I was asked in the class that I was taking it online, pre-made, and you had to take tests after that, and you have to parrot what their conclusions were. So you couldn't disagree with certain things, because if you disagreed with certain things, you would not pass the classes. Kind of like the Michigan State University in some classes of sociology and not only anthropology, when you were required to give the right answers, that you disagreed with those answers because you knew that was not true or scientifically proven. What do we have here? All right, let's take a chance on this one. All right, good. Nothing happens here. So that was, I've been asked if I am an ally to a minority group. Guess who were you allied against? The majority group. Who was the majority group? Yes, you guessed it. You guessed it. And I exited and I was waiting. It was a mandatory class training. There were some mandatory and some that were just, suggested. This was a mandatory. That is, you gotta take it, my friend. And I exited and I was waiting for the director or my supervisor to ask me, why didn't I complete the course? And I would have told them why. So that was a lot of these kind of courses in which they teach you to hate yourself and hate your group and somehow admire other groups. Now, I don't think that's legal in the United States of America, but they made it legal because of the past discrimination. Got that? And with that one, you can break each and every law you want, it seems like. Right here, it's some deer tracks. If you see it right here, it's a big one, right there. All right, so gotta climb this little hill. So that was one thing that we had to do as investigators. Basically, hate ourselves and reprogram ourselves to like stereotypes that were approved, not the ones that they say, hey, no stereotyping, no discriminating. Now let me tell you the story. Not a story, what happened. I mean, it's a story, but here's what happened. At one point they made a study, and coming from the governor of the state of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, they were asked as a department to come with a proportion. I mean, they required us, the employees, the workers, to tell them what kind of race we identify as or we are. And the point that they were making was a more imbecilic one than this one. It was to better be able to serve the communities we are working with. So that is, let's say, you had a city, because they think that we should not discriminate, we should not stereotype, and you can say that how should I put it? have to be very careful what I'm saying because of YouTube and not only. Basically, if there's too many people of a certain group, let's say too many whites in a black majority community, therefore the blacks, the children, will not be able to learn because of the white teachers, because they don't understand the culture and how to deal with these guys, even though the education system is general. But hey, you need to understand that sometimes with certain groups you need to know how to work and have to understand their culture. I'm all for that. But I don't think that a person necessarily that is born in a culture will know exactly how to work with the particular group that he belongs to. Like me, let's say born as a Romanian, obviously I know some particularities of how the Romanian children, not all of them because there's generalization, might act, the psychology, right? But that is in Romania, not necessarily here. Like an American, let's say Romanian American as they call it, which I disagree totally with that term. You're an American, you're not a Romanian American or a Hungarian American or an African American or whatever American. You are an American. That's how I look at it. Because if I start looking at it in terms of a group, then guess what's going to happen? Herd mentality. Herd mentality and group membership. And then we'll have, I'm better than you, let's do something about it, if you know what I mean. Which I don't support. I had to say that because otherwise people might think that, hey, you stopped there. Why did you stop there? All right, so they think that if you have, that would work in the reverse, right? So let's say you have a community of majority, let's say white people, that means you can't have black teachers then, right? No, wrong. So obviously in Ingham County, the big majority of people are white. But there are a big minority of African American or black minority, how you want to call it, some Mexican minority, and so on. So therefore, they wanted to know the proportion of workers, what race are they, so we can serve better the community. So what does that tell you? I think that's how I understood it, because nobody would talk to me about it, was if we determine that in the department there's more, let's say, of a group overrepresented, compared with the number of the proportion of the people in that town, let's say in Lansing, let's say 60% whites, let's say 20% blacks, and let's say 20% let's say Latino, let's put it this way. Then they think that that's exactly the proportion in the department. Therefore, what are you going to do, let's say, if you find out that actually not 60% of the department employees are white, but 90? Are you going to fire the people that are from 60 to 90? Are you going to fire 30% of them? What are you going to do? And you're going to make sure you're going to mandatorily hire others to make up so you can get to 60, 20, 20? That was exactly the goal. But they didn't say it that way. They were hiding behind all kind of easy, childish terms. That's why they asked us. It was an email sent to the entire office. There was foster care, there was ongoing, there was investigation. All these guys, they were supposed to reveal their race. I know it was something here. Reveal their race. So he said, please let us know what race do you identify as. Okay, why? All right, so I want to make a joke and say I'm Chinese or something, or Asian, or who the hell knows, or African American. Obviously, that would not have flown. It would be like, oh my God, you're a bad dude. But that's how idiotic the whole thing was. So what did I do? I said, no, you know what? I'm not going to reveal or disclose my race that I identify as. So I was waiting, and then after about a week, another email came from the director. Please make sure that you are, and then from a supervisor, make sure that you remember that email, and follow up, and gentle reminder, and very gentle reminder. And they were all gentle reminders all the time. And you had to say what you were, and I refuse to do that. I want them to come and talk to me. And at one point, my supervisor forwarded a message, an email, from the director, because he was a director in charge of the whole office, and it was the program directors, all right, and then it was the supervisors, and then it was the investigators, social workers, whatever, how you want to call whomever there was over there. So they sent me, said it's 12 of you who still did not answer to this email and so on. So I didn't answer that. So my supervisor sent me an email directly. Said, "Are you not going to cooperate or something?" Nicely. I mean, the supervisor and I were more direct, but not through emails, because the emails were read. That's for sure. They were stored. So we were careful in not saying things that we really believe in. I'm not going to disclose the name, but people who know me probably, obviously, can guess who that person was. Hi. So I told him that no. I said, I don't. I said, am I required to? Like, is it mandatory? I tried to put it on them. I said, is it? I have to? Is it mandatory? And he sent that, forwarded that to the director, and the director. This was the director's answer. She said, no, it's not mandatory. And she said, my supervisor's name, I will just use George. George, okay, just make sure that you go into the Secretary of State databases and you find out what he identified in his driver's license. That's what she said. That's what she wrote. I can't remember if I saved that email, because I saved a lot of emails that were, I'm going this way, a lot of emails that were incriminating anyway. But the point is, she said, if he doesn't want to, it's okay. We're going to find out from his self-identification in the driver's license. Because working at a CPS investigator, you could request a SOS, Secretary of State search, which you ask someone else to do it for you. They would go in the system and you give whatever information you want that pertain to the case that you're investigating, and they will provide you whatever information you wanted. Driver's license, whenever, and what kind of cars they own or something like that. I'm not going to go further than that. So that's what the director told my supervisor. It's okay, go and get it from there. Why was it so necessary for Gretchen Whitmer to know that? Because she wanted to know the proportion, so we better serve the community. So as I said, how come, let's say they found out that it was, let's say some minority groups were overrepresented. Do you think they would care? I guarantee you not, and I'll tell you why. That's another thing that I disclosed for you. We had, if I remember correctly, between 10 and 12 supervisors. I can't remember exactly how many there were. With each supervisor having about 5, I think about 12, 11, 12 supervisors, depending on how many were available. And they had a group of investigators, and obviously they were managing. And these supervisors from foster care, from CPS investigation, from CPS ongoing, I can tell you, and I can go in front of a judge and swear that out of the 12, was it a shit? No. Phew. I felt like I was sliding. I was like, no. Anyway, so from the 12 supervisors, this was the racial distribution, and the gender distribution, and the ethnic distribution. So all of them were Americans, obviously, but none of them was a recently, how do you call it, boat-coming immigrant like me. There was nothing like that. Now, that was the ethnic. So they were all Americans, which I'm just fine, which is, second, third, first, fourth, how do you call it, immigrants. So what happened next? Gender. We had at times between 1 and 2 male supervisors out of 12. I think that's underrepresentation. They didn't give a shit. Nothing. Which they shouldn't. They shouldn't, because it's based on meritocracy. But based on their ideology, they should have immediately fired 3 or 4 women. No? Because the women were greatly overrepresented. And just from you and I, out of those supervisors that I dealt with, and you deal with them in meetings and so on, I would say that maybe 2 of them were serious supervisors. The rest were baboons. That's the word. That's the gender distribution. Now the racial distribution. There was no black male. No black male. So there were about, I can tell you how many white supervisors were. Let's put it this way. I think it was there any Asian? No. It was the black were the majority, just black women were the majority. You can say, well, in that line of work, what do you expect? You can't do that, man, because then you're stereotyping. But nevertheless, if you are for diversity, equity, inclusion, then you would not have that. You would include people like me. You would include more black people. You would include some Asians that were working over there. But no, somehow there were white, black, female, about. So there were 2. Let's say 2 male, they were white. Then you got, let's see how many white supervisors, about 3 white women supervisors, and the rest were black supervisors. So that's 5. Let's give them 6. So half, 50% of the supervision was black women. That's a fact. I have names. So that's overrepresentation. So what are you going to do in order to fulfill, because you profess that you care so much for diversity, inclusion, and equity? That's the diversity, inclusion, equity that they want. That's the one. Otherwise, you would have an immigrant, you would have an Asian, you would make it proportionate. So when they talked about the workers, being representing the diverse community and the proportion, you should look at the supervisors. Hey, that's not all of it. I will tell you more. The program directors. The program directors were 2. Now in a society, it's 51-49. 51 usually women, 49 men. That's in the American society. So it should have been a man and a woman. No, it wasn't. There were 2 women. Now, someone is overrepresented over there. I gotta tell you that. And that is not equitable. Is it? Obviously not. So that's the first one. But hey, let's go to something else. So we did it by the gender. Let's go by the race. 1 was white, 100%. The other one was Latino. Not black, Latino. So someone was overrepresented, someone was not included or excluded, and no immigrants again, and no black male, and no white male as well. Okay, let's go to the director, who was the one that was pushing this thing. She was a female, obviously. So 100%, or 50% overrepresented. We make 2 directors. That's how you would make it in an equitable system, right? Like the Romans had, how do you call it? Triumvirat? Is that how it was called? Yes, that's exactly how it's called, triumvirat. That means the 3 generals who were ruling. And then you had in the Byzantine Empire, there were 4, if I remember. Or the whole guys, it was the Rome as well. There were 4 emperors. 4 emperors. Should we that way? And why don't we just make it like, let's see what kind of minorities we have, including the midgets, or the acromegalic people, or the guys with only 1 eye, or the guys with blue eyes and water eyes. And we can divide it in so many subgroups that you would have, I don't know, 400 directors. And then inclusion will be done, and diversity and equity 100%. Because you have to go not only by the group, but by the proportion of the group in the society. So imbecilic, my friends. That's why this is garbage. So this director that asked my supervisor to find what my race was from the Secretary of State search, she was all for diversity and inclusion. Why? Because she was told to. She never in her life said, you know what? In the name of equity, I will just quit my job and allow, let's say, a poor immigrant Irish immigrant to being a male immigrant being in charge of this. Not one time. The two program directors did not do that and say, you know what, I am overrepresenting my group here and other people are underrepresented. Factually, never quit, none of this. But they were lecturing us, the rest of us, about all this with a straight face. That's exactly what I told the director in my exit interview. So when I decided to jump somewhere else, right? When I decided to do that, what happened? I told her in the exit interview, I said, this is BS. You should have quit a long time ago and you did it. You didn't believe in that. She pretended to take notes. And I said, you're going to take a shit. I didn't tell her like that, but you know, you're going to take a shit on those notes the sooner, as soon as we end this interview. It was a virtual interview through Teams, I think, Teams meeting, whatever it was. So that's the way it was, my friends, in the CPS. And that was not something, oh my God, policies. The policies are made somewhere else and are skewed against one group and skewed towards other groups. That's my direct experience. If you don't believe me, fucking sue me. Please sue me. Sue me, and when you sue me, then what are we gonna do? It's a car here, I don't want to videotape that one. Sue me, and then we're gonna talk about it. Because that's the way it is, YouTube. So if YouTube is gonna think that, oh, this is not fair, sue me the fuck out of me. And this was in every little thing. Look at Gretchen. Look at Gretchen. I'm not gonna talk about the sexual inclination or preference. Nah, I'm not gonna talk about it. Actually, I can talk about it. I know it was one supervisor, a female supervisor, was a lesbian. So 1 out of 12. The rest were heterosexual. What about the guys that were, I don't know, gender fluid? How about the other guys that are queer? How about the other, I mean, she was a, nah, my friend, this is such a garbage. And this is all about power. It's not about equity, it's not about, it's some people need to give away the power. We have to, how do you call it? We have to diversify, we have to fragment the society in such a way that the people could not unite under group banners. Yeah, right now it's the whites. And after they take care of that, they will take care of the, who's they? The guy in charge of us. Don't you think that these guys really feel for the minorities? No, their goal is to fragment the society. So you can't have any allegiance to a group but to the dollar. And the dollar is universal. That's what it is. And they can lead how much they want. They can rule all over us. Look in the Senate. Look in the House. Oh, these are elected officials. My friends, this is just a game. But if it's not a game, this is my concern. And I uttered this concern many times before. And that was this. Remember the Haitian genocide or massacre from 1806? You know what happened? Well, before you go and check it, and I hope you do, and don't believe what I'm saying, even though it's accurate what I'm saying. Haiti was a French colony, belonged to France. And then the French, obviously, bad people, like many others, had slaves, brought slaves on the island. And then little by little, you know, they were lazy. They were drinking their wine and they were eating their cheese and what else. And they started employing, like the Romans employed in their legions, the auxiliaries or the cohorts, which were made out of foreigners. And those guys were promoted at one point, not through a stupid ideology, but it was stupid because why? Those guys, if you remember, Alaric showed up in Rome. What did he do? Alaric was a Roman legionnaire. I'm sorry, he was high up. He was high up in the legions and so on. So he showed up with his Goths, right? And the Latins in Rome, and he sacked Rome. Wasn't he? Alaric? What was it? 470 something? Common Era? So think about that. Think about what the French did. They did the same thing. They, you know, say, oh, come on, man, let's do. And they had certain kind of, you know, officers in the army. And the army was made out of unfortunate slaves. And when these unfortunate slaves got the opportunity, they massacred all the white population. and the mestizos. That's how you say mestizos? No, the Creole. The Creole on the island. So if you looked a little bit of a certain kind of skin, these guys would take. And that's how Haiti became independent and great and fantastic at that point. So read about it. Now, when I see, for instance, some generals here appointed in the positions of supposedly in control of the US military, I can't help thinking of Haiti and Alaric. But hey, that's me. I'm not saying that's the way it should be or will be, I don't know, but somewhere in the back of my head is like, history repeats itself with different protagonists and in different times, obviously. All right, thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.